Welcome back to the Bob Harden Show. And now here's your host, Bob Harden.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the show. It's brought to you in part by the Foundation for Government Accountability. They help prepare elected officials to have winning strategies in their elected offices, and you can find out more by visiting thefga.org. Coming up, we're going to be visiting with Larry Bell, endowed professor at the University of Houston in space architecture. Right now, we have with us Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He is a medical doctor. He's a former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander. He's been very active in the Muslim reform movement, and his book, The Battle for the Soul of Islam, is just a great read. And he's specializing in national security, counterterrorism, and Mideast policy, and also a candidate for Congress in the 4th District in Arizona. Dr. Jasser, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Oh, it's always great to be with you. It's always great to be with you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, Dr. Jasser. And tell us, how's the campaign going?
Oh, it's going fantastic. We closed a great first quarter. As you know, we launched in October, and our quarter ended end of December, and we have a few primary challenges, but the main one actually ran last time, lost by 12 points, and we outraised him last quarter by 5 times, and actually raised in one quarter more than he raised all of last year. So we hit we not only made a splash, but they know they have a challenge, and we're significantly positioned to win this district. It's a split actually that favors Republicans by 1%, with predominantly independents registered. So, as you know, with my background, with my ability to create coalitions, but also speak to conservative values, and as far as the border and other things, this week with the border disaster that was presented by the Democrats, I was a leading voice here in presenting a coherent plan, an 8-point plan that really Greg Stanton, who supported the Democrat border presentation, really shows that he really doesn't care about Arizonans, doesn't care about the law, and actually just wants to care more about foreign migrants than he does about our own citizens. So candidacy is, I think they are telling me, a breath of fresh air. And as you know, we've had a lot of street credibility with my willingness to walk towards fires rather than away from them.
Absolutely. Well, and any comments at all on the fairness of elections in Arizona? That's been a big issue for the last 4 years.
Well, there's no that election integrity is one of the top issues of the campaign here, and all I can tell you is that we want conservative voters to turn out so that we can elect people that can hold our electorate, hold our leaders accountable, and push back against the establishment that want to manipulate the system. Remember, election integrity is not just about counting every vote, which is primary, but also about the media manipulation, about suppressing information before elections, about manipulation of major social media, other things that we saw right before the elections last time. So, our plan to bring back election integrity includes not only counting every vote, but also preventing government interference and big media interference on the left, as we saw with Twitter and Google and others that were really helping became, unearned media for the Democratic Party, if you will, that needs to be exposed during the election process, and that's what we're doing.
I hope you'll check out Dr. Jasser's website for Congress. It's z4az.com, z4az.com. Dr. Jasser is a medical doctor. Yesterday, we got the report. Robert Hur stated that there's certainly that what Joe Biden has done in terms of those documents and classified documents is not acceptable, but he kind of referred to him as a doddering old man, and no jury would convict him because he's just kind of incapable and has cognitive issues. So I wonder if you'd be willing to comment.
Well, listen, I do primary care every day. Actually, the vast majority of my patients are over 65. I adore them, and we walk with families down that path in which patients begin to have some cognitive impairment. And this is not about any armchair medical evaluations. This is about our country. And, I know they're talking, there's even, I think the New York Post had a headline about elder abuse. And actually, this is about abuse. This is the most protected human being on the planet.
Right.
It's about abuse of the American public. Do you know that in Arizona, I think in every state, let's not talk about politicians or heads of government. How about physicians? If we see another physician that's impaired before they go to surgery, whether it's from drugs or cognition or whatever, I am accountable as a physician to the other patients that aren't even my patients if I don't report that physician that's cognitively impaired for whatever reason, because then their patient is at risk. So when President Biden is behind the doors representing American public and deciding on interventions, he's being protected by folks that are complicit legally and ethically in basically facilitating a malpractice, if you will, to the American public. And this is about capacity, it's about competency. And if you look at him, you don't need to be a physician to know that our emperor not only has no clothes, but he's careening down the streets naked, and nobody is saying anything. And as a doctor, you see basically stiffening of his gait, a blank facies, confabulation, confusing historical figures with present figures, not remembering that. And you had objective. Now we finally have a legal report from somebody who's objective that had to basically say, this is what happened. And you can't dismiss it because he's elderly. Imagine, Bob, if every citizen that didn't pay their taxes said, oh, you know what, I just couldn't remember anymore, my memory's getting bad, and my dad couldn't do the calculation, so he didn't pay his taxes. They'd be in prison. It doesn't matter what the cause is, and yet the president seems to get a pass on all this. It's completely unethical and corrupt.
It certainly is, and it's the only saving grace is I just happen to believe I don't think he's really making these decisions at all, and it's the cabal behind him that I think has all the control. There's, in some ironic way, that's kind of a saving grace, but irrespective, he's not qualified to be our president, and he shouldn't be in office, frankly. So what can we do about this?
Well, I think we need to continue to push the issue, and I hope the Democratic Party itself realizes that if they don't push it quickly, they're going to be the ones who forget every vote. They're going to have no votes and end up switching a candidate after the primary process. So they're going to end up having a candidate that really wasn't even voted by any of the members of their party. If they don't do that earlier on in the primary, already they've missed a few primaries. And you have candidates like Phillips and others that are talking about it. But at the end of the day, talk about negating the Democratic Party process. And this needs to happen more quickly. And we also need to press it not simply by asking questions, but by revealing the fact that, this is the tip of the iceberg. When he confuses current French presidents with ones that are dead, like Mitterrand, or German presidents Kohl, or confuses Egypt with Mexico, all these things that are happening, this is somebody whose neural function is going haywire, and the American public is at stake, and our security is at stake as a result.
And his performance on he should have never held that press conference last night, but he did. He was angry and upset, emotionally upset, and it was just a very embarrassing display of his incompetency. Yeah,
and listen, I'm glad he held it. Imagine your surgeon comes out to you in the waiting room and says, well, I'm glad my colleague C. Everett Koop helped me out, and the surgery went well. And you'd be like, wait a minute, Koop died decades ago, and he was President Reagan's Surgeon General. Yeah. So this is an important thing. But what happens behind the scenes, we need to have more of this so that it becomes painfully obvious what's happening, and we start to hold the people around him. I mean, the White House is not supposed to be a memory care center.
Exactly right. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, again, candidate for Congress in the 4th District of Arizona. I hope you'll check out his website and make a contribution. I mean, money is the mother milk of politics. Z4AZ.com is the website. Z4AZ.com. He will be a terrific congressman. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Take care.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. All right, coming up, we're going to be visiting with Larry Bell. He is endowed professor at the University of Houston in space architecture. That and more right here in the Bob Harden Show on the Bob Harden Broadcasting Network.
Stay tuned for more of the Bob Harden Show here on the Bob Harden Broadcasting Network.
Do you have questions about